right, here we are. Steve, welcome again.
Great, Adam. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah, really good. So this is our sort of like part one of our little series we're going to do about Tonechaser, the audiobook, which again had fantastic reviews, and everyone that's heard it so far has just loved it. So yeah, well done again.
Yeah, man. Well done to all of us. I mean, we all worked long and hard for over 8 months, and yeah, it's all there. I mean, I think it's just an amazing testimony. It's an amazing document of who Edward Van Halen was, going all the way back to '78. When that first interview happened. So yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I think people who have heard it have loved it, and if you haven't heard it, well, you should hear it. So go get it.
That's it. Now, I think
Yeah.
the great thing is, what a lot of people have messaged me about is the app that you can get it from is called Soundwise, which is a really cool app because you can actually chat in the app itself through the chapters. So, if someone wants to have a listen to whatever, chapter 4, and comment about that, you can see it and you can comment about it as well. So I've never really seen that before, where people chatting to the author or the narrator about the book and getting comments and live feedback as well, which is, I think that's a huge bonus.
Yeah, no, I love that part of it. It is fantastic, and I'm notified when somebody puts a comment. So dumb me, I thought I could find the comments online, but it has to be an app in your phone. So I'm slow with those things, but I figured it out. And yeah, I'll go in and I'll see these comments, and someone has just read a chapter, and I'll comment on it. It's just amazing. It's like I'm reading it with these people,
Yep.
as they're reading it, and I get to experience it all over again. And for me, that's fantastic. I've always loved that connection with my readers. Going back to my articles way back in the day, and of course the book. So yeah, to be able to connect with people with the audiobook is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, before we get into the audio from chapter 34, which we're going to talk about today, I know you did release the other video last week, which is about behind the scenes, so people could see a bit about the narration. Now, the other one coming up next week will be the bloopers, which I must say is hilarious.
Bloopers, I'd like to tell everybody out there I've read this thing flawlessly top to bottom, and I was a total pro. It was seriously challenging. Honestly, it was more challenging than I thought it'd be. Look, I know that we're dealing, basically with 580 pages of text. I mean, I know that there was going to be, well, initially I was going to read the entire book. So you're talking, I think there was 280,000 words. That's a lot of words.
Mm.
To give you some measure, a typical story that I would do, a long story, a cover story, could be 3,000 words, 4,000 words. So, yeah, going into it, I thought it's going to take forever. And I remember talking to Tanner. Tanner was my engineer here where I lived in Lake Forest, in Orange County, California. And I would go over to Tanner's studio, and that's where I would record my parts. And honestly, when we first started, I thought this was going to take, and he and I both thought it's going to take minimally a year. So the fact that we were able to put all this together in 8 months, I think we were screaming. So literally out of the box, I'm reading that first paragraph, and thank you everybody for reading thank you everybody for, man, and just the simplest things and words I've said and written 1,000 times. It's just a completely different part of your brain. If you're reading a book to yourself, silently to yourself, it's one thing, right? You're not stumbling over anything. You're not hearing, there's nothing happening audio-wise. But when you have to sort of look ahead and look, I'm not a professional narrator, and I'm guessing an actor would look at a script and, he's always looking ahead at the next word so he knows what's coming. That's how he would learn it, So you're kind of looking ahead to see what's coming. and then you kind of, you know, you lose eyesight, you know, your eye line with the line you're on. And then some words, man, I mispronounced over and over. Sometimes I would substitute one word, and I'm looking at it and kind of go, no, that's not the right word. And I would start getting angry at him. I go, what? And I look, and go, oh yeah, it was, you know, it could be something simple like guitar instead of guitars. But you know, you can't have a mistake like that. And so there were bloopers, and honestly, he probably could have recorded about 8,000 hours of bloopers. And luckily, we kind of cut it down to, you know, I don't know how many bloopers there are, but they are funny, you know, and it really gives you a sense of how difficult it was.
Yep.
So you people at home, so you go home, turn on your little cassette player, and start reading Tonechaser, and see how far you get before making a mistake. And it's not too far, so there you go.
Exactly. But in saying that, though, I think it's great that you've done this yourself and narrated it, because that's been another huge comments and feedback about, you know, people reading or getting other people to read your book. It's not quite the same as getting the actual author, and especially, you know, that you experienced this whole thing with Edward, sorry, and in having those interviews, it just flows really well. Having you narrating it, going into those old interviews, yeah. So well done.
Well, thank you, man. And that's an excellent point, because seriously, my first thought was, I'm going to bring in a narrator to read the entire book. And then I kind of got cold on that for that exact reason that you just described. Yes, this, excuse me, this narrator, you know, may have narrated 100 books, could be a total professional. He could have, you know, what took me, I don't know, a month to do, he could have knocked out in a week. You know, could have done 10 chapters a day, possibly. But he didn't have that connection with Edward Van Halen, you know. It's possible he may not have even known about Van Halen. You know, maybe he was a fan of Mariah Carey. I don't know. Or maybe he never even liked Van Halen. So I thought about those things, and I thought, okay, I've got to narrate. And when I made that decision, and again, initially I was thinking about narrating the entire book myself. I had to find that balance in my voice, and nobody likes listening to their voice. And so, you know, I actually would practice at home a little bit, you know, and try to hear myself. I wanted to find that spot between coming off too neutral, where there was no emotion in my voice. And you hear that in a lot of professionally narrated audiobooks. I mean, it's pristine, and there's no mistakes, obviously, but they tend to be a little flat. There's not a lot of emotion. They're not flowing, you know, what is being described in the book, whatever it is. So I had to find that fine line between not being totally neutral, not going overboard, and in the lighter parts, you know, being more lighthearted to the point where it's like, you know, I sound goofy. Or during those darker parts, you know, not trying to sound so maudlin that I was trying to tug at your heartstrings. You know, I wanted you to feel this, because that would have been, you know, that's like a soap opera. I mean, that would have been horrible. Yeah. So, you know, I worked on it, and I think I found that balance. And I think I did inject more emotion than a professional narrator would have. And, you know, I haven't heard anybody say, oh, man, you shouldn't have narrated it. That sucked, you know. So short of that, I thought, okay, I did a good job. It was okay, you know. And then the second part of that, which we touched on, is obviously bringing in all of Edward's interviews. And you and I have talked about this for a long time, and I know that I've sort of sent you interviews along the way, and we put some of that stuff up on YouTube. And even as I did that, I was just reluctant. And I'm not sure where that came from. I suppose because it was so personal to me. And it was never intended for anybody else to hear, that I just felt like, you know what, this is mine. this is my history, I'm not going to share. I'm going to be selfish. So ultimately, I put up a couple things on YouTube and which Adam, you put together and put those up there, man. And thank you for that. And the response was amazing. I mean, people they loved it. I mean, they got a lot of views, and that told me, wow, people hear this, it's audio from Edward from, at that point, I mean, this stuff could have been 40 or 45 years ago, in the moment. And I realized how much it touched these people. And I think I probably thought about that. And so, and again, so I'm thinking about narrating the whole thing. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm coming to these interview parts, and where it's my question, in the interview, Steve Rosen is asking Edward, so Edward, you're going out on tour next month. That makes sense. That would have made sense to have that question in Steve Rosen's voice. And then in Steve Rosen's voice, pretending I'm Eddie Van Halen, yeah, man, we're going out on the road. And, and I thought about that and the way he speaks. And, he doesn't speak like I do. He doesn't use the same kind of words I do. And so now do I try to, not that I could mimic, the sound of his voice, but do I try and mimic the cadence of his voice and how he sort of ums and ahs, and I thought, oh my God, that's going to be, it's going to come out like a cartoon. So at a point in time, I thought, you know what, it has to have the original audio. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to use it in certain spots. I'll pick some, really key paragraphs where, if you hear Edward's voice, speaking those words, it's going to be really cool. And then I thought, well, my God, now you're going to hear that paragraph in Edward's voice, and it's going to be amazing. Then it's going to go to the next paragraph, and you're going to hear my voice. That's even more ludicrous. That contrast would just be insane. So at the end of the day, I decided to embed everything, and just sending it to you was, my God, a nightmare. I have this incredibly slow computer, and I would send you stuff on WeTransfer, and it would take forever to get to you, and pieces would be missing, and then I have to go find them. But ultimately, I got everything to you, and we put it together. So,
yeah, well, that's a really
labor of love.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what we're about to talk about now, because what we're about to play has only been heard by yourself and me. This is actually Twilight Tape number 2. So it's chapter 34, Candle Astray, which is September 5th, 1985. And again, yeah, no one's heard this until today. So what I thought we might do is I want to set the mood. So this is how the day started. So let's have a quick listen to this. So, now, do you remember where this was? Was that at your place?
That was 1909 Weepaw Way.
Okay.
My little guest house on Weepaw Way, up in the Hollywood Hills, and I'm there on probably a weeknight, and I'm there with my buddy Ron De La Vega, who's my good friend, also an extraordinary musician, unbelievable bass player. Played with Nancy Griffiths, played in her band. Fantastic bass player, a very, very accomplished keyboard player, and an amazing cello player. So he's over, and we're working on one of my songs when there's a knock on my door, and I open it up, and who else would it be? Edward Van Halen is there on my doorstep. So,
Wow.
that was pretty amazing. So he comes in, and of course he's got a cigarette. He's smoking a cigarette. And for all the times he was in the place, I never said, "Don't smoke, Edward. You know, you stink up my place." I never said it. Should have said it. Never did. And while we're talking about cigarettes, those of you who have read the book know where the title of this comes from, Candle Ashtray. I had a couple ashtrays. I didn't smoke, but I had a couple ashtrays. I actually I stole, or let's just say I borrowed permanently an ashtray from the whiskey, and I had one from the Playboy Club. You know, I thought, gotta have that, right? So I remember he was over once, and I gave him the whiskey ashtray. You know, I thought that he'd look at it and go, "Oh yeah, the whiskey," you know, but I don't think he didn't look at the bottom of it that had the little whiskey logo. You know, he just flicked his ashes in it. So I had this huge candle, it was like this square candle that I used to burn once in a while. And so like the middle of it, you know, like a big candle would do kind of hollowed out. So I would use this candle as the ashtray, hence Candle Ashtray, you know. And that's when he makes the comment that I believe is in the audiobook and in the book. Man, every time I come over here, he gives me this thing and I smell it, you know. And my friend Ron also smoked a lot. And he said the same thing, and they both laughed. Because, you know, when the ashes would go in, it would kind of melt the wax. And the candle had like a, you know, like a fragrance. It was like vanilla or peppermint or something. So that was pretty funny. So that's where that title comes from.
So basically from here, yeah, so he comes in and then what you guys plug in, you're in the middle of writing a song?
So he walks in and I'm playing guitar. And I think I had a little, I don't know if we were plugged. I must have been plugged into some kind of a little effects thing, you know, or maybe it was a little amp that somehow, maybe it was a little pig nose with a little effects in, because it was an overdrive, which is a sound you couldn't have gotten out of the pig nose. So I'm trying to think how we kind of got an overdriven sound. My buddy Ron was really good with that. It was some kind of a little rib, you know, and he had a little Fostex 4-track, you know, that everybody used back in the day. And he was also great, like you, man. He could figure that stuff out. I could not. Oh my God, he'd bounce tracks. Not in 1,000 years could I figure out how to bounce a track, but he was really good with that stuff. It was my 4-track, so I used to buy the gear, but he would run it all because I didn't have a clue. And he had a Roland, some kind of a keyboard, and I think we were just sitting on the carpet. You know, I don't think we were in chairs. In fact, I know we weren't, because I don't think I even had 2 chairs in my place. I think I had 1 chair. So we're sitting on the carpet. So Edward walks in, he's smoking a cigarette. He sees us there. And, he kind of gets it. He's singing, oh, I'm sure he's singing, oh, they're working on some music, you know. So he kind of walks in. Ron knew I was friendly, that I was friends with Edward. He had never met him. So you're sitting there with your friend Steve Rosen, and Edward Van Halen walks in. Well, you know, I'm sure he was a little shook up. But Ron was cool. He was a good guy, you know. It's not like he made a scene. I'm sure that I introduced them, you know, and I'm sure Ron's heart is beating, you know. And so we continue working for a bit. And then, so this is where Edward sat down. He says, hey, man, can I try some stuff? So he takes my guitar, and before, you know, again, I'm playing and I sound like horse shit. I mean, it sounds horrible. And he takes it, and you can hear what he just did. I mean, you can hear that that's Edward Van Halen, right? You know it in a heartbeat. Oh, my God. And he's playing these things on my guitar, which never stayed in tune except for when he played it. And I write about that in the book, right? And you can hear that in the audiobook. And he's playing this stuff, and it's amazing. And so this is the part, Adam, where he starts playing the riff. And I believe, and I don't think it's even, if I may be confusing my chapters, and there may be a point when he had played another song for me, but I thought it was this song. And he asks me, hey, does this sound like anything? And may have made some reference like, yeah, man, it kind of reminds me of an AC/DC song. And why I said that, it doesn't. But so he starts playing this song, and I'm going, wow, yeah. He said, yeah, I just came up with this. I go, wow, man, that's really cool. And it was not until the 5150 record comes out. We were just talking about this, Adam, March of '86, and we're in September '85 here when he comes over. So not until all those months later, I'm hearing the record and I'm hearing down, you know, I'm hearing like, oh my God, that's what he played when he came over that night, you know. And it was just so amazing that, you know, he'd come over and just play that because he wanted to share it. You know, I mean, that was a big part of who he was. It's not like, oh, I've got this riff and no one's going to hear it until the record comes out. He wasn't like that at all. Sure. He wanted to share it. He wanted, you know, me and Ron to hear that, you know. I just thought that was so extraordinary. Mm. You know, it was so special when I, you know, recognized the song as 5150. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more of it here. I think I can't remember which part this is, but. Yeah, I mean, so even that sound, like you said, you can hear that's Eddie straight away.
I know, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like I handed him this guitar. He tossed the guitar in the garbage, you know, magically whipped out one of his Frankenstrats and stomped on his two favorite pedals. Yeah. I mean, he's just, you know, I mean, I call the book, you know, Tonechaser, and that's what he was forever doing, you know, and people were forever chasing his tone. But the truth of it is, that's who he was with any guitar he ever played, through any amp. You know, great guitar players could do that, but he really could do that. I mean, he really had that sense of, you know, it was all in his fingers. Look, I'm not discounting, you know, his guitars and the woods and his pickup configurations and the way he liked to wire his pedal board. I mean, I get all that. Those were all the pieces. But even without those pieces, you know, he was gonna pretty much sound like that, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah. So that was like the B section, or like the verse of 5150, that second part there. Yeah. Adding in his little. Exactly. You know, and you can hear you can just hear how percussive he is in his playing, right? It's just, I mean, you can hear the drums, right? It's like it's like the groove is right there. You know, and the groove was always in his right hand. You know, look, Alex was a great drummer. Obviously, Mike was there, but that groove kind of began with his right hand, you know, and his feel. You know. Yeah, exactly. Pretty unique. Yeah. I'll play a little bit of this here. I hope I got the right part. So there's your little song there. Where is it the first one? That's not Believe, is it? Is that the other one? Yeah. No. That's Believe. Oh, that's Believe. And then later on, he'll play on Mortal Man. Okay. Yeah. So. Okay, so it's already cool. So you can hear him talking, you know, going through the parts. Yeah. You know, it gets to the end here. Oh, you tell me that's all right. What is this? The verse all of a sudden? No, that's the chorus. That's the chorus right here. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was trying to figure out which part it was. Exactly. That's so funny. Yeah. All of a sudden, it goes lounge band. That's right. And then he talks about, it sounds a bit like a lounge band. Then he goes to chunky riffs or something. I think he talks about here. Yeah, maybe it's just, what is it? Keyboardist? Guitar and keyboards. Yeah. Put a guitar in there that's chunky, like.
instead of bling, bling, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it all being airy, cloud, spacey, bitching, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a bam, da, 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 da.
So there's the rhythm you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, he's heard the song for 30 seconds. He doesn't even know the changes. He doesn't even know the chorus from the verse. It didn't matter. You know, yeah, what an insight. I mean, you know, I could write 1,000 pages trying to describe that, and you hear him say that, you know, in the context of the song itself. So you're hearing the song, you know, and it's not even one of his songs.
Yeah.
You know, it's the fact that it is my song. Yeah, you know, talk about that thing about teacher and yeah, he said it sounds like a lounge. And then he said it sounds like, what do you say? He goes, it sounds like cloudy or dreamy or airy or something.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
He's what he's really wanted to say. I mean, it's like, man, it's so light. I mean, there's nothing going on, and I get it, and he's right.
Yeah.
You know, I was going for a, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, you know, it sounds like a police song.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's his name? Oh God, the guitar player.
Andy Summers?
Andy Summers, sorry, man. You know, that those amazing clean sounds that he get, you know, even that they were clean, but they were so big. And mine is just like this little thing, and I get it, you know. So yeah, when he's talking about those accents, it's like, I just couldn't. I was a good songwriter in as much as I understood how you build verses and how you build anticipation. I mean, I understood it, but for him just to nail it like that, I mean, I don't know if I ever would have come up with that. I doubt if I ever would have come up with those specific accents. You know, I might have put like a, you know, and like maybe most people would have done, you know, maybe just like a big, you know, overdriven guitar, you know, but that wouldn't have moved the song in the way he did, just singing those parts. So that was amazing, you know. And I remember, you know, people ask me, you know, well, what's like the best moment you ever had with Edward? Well, I got to tell you, that ranks in the top 5.
Yeah.
Edward Van Halen showing up at my place unannounced, sitting down and playing on one of my songs and giving me ideas. I mean, that's just the greatest. And when you hear him talk about it again, you know, that's why the audiobook is so amazing, because I take a lot of pages, you know, that you've just read some of that, Adam, and I tried to describe that as best I could. And even, you know, with his actual words and the interviews, you know, are in there, and you're reading that, man, you just hear him talk for 2 minutes, right? And you just hear this accent. I mean, you just get it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, that's what makes this audiobook.
Yeah.
I say in all modesty, so incredible. I mean, your window into who he is revealed 1,000 times more. So yeah, that was such an amazing thing. I remember he said, "Yeah, man, it's kind of airy or dreamy or cloudy." So, yeah. You know, because he would never say to me, "God, that's the worst thing I ever heard," or whether it was or wasn't, he never would have said that. You know, and again, that speaks to who he was, because he knows how I would have reacted to that. You know, and that it'd be like, you know, and I may not have tried to show it, you know, but it's like, my God, Edward Van Halen just said my song is a piece of shit. It's like, you know, but you know, and I don't think he consciously thought of it, but it is hard or something, man. He just knew. Yep. So that's why he would say something, and he would toss the ideas out. And then on the other end, you hear him saying like, well, yeah, you know, you could do these accents, as if he wants to be cool, giving the suggestions. Like, he doesn't want to take over the song, right? Or act like he's saying, this is how it has to be. You know what I mean? So on the other side of it, he's Edward Van Halen taking a step back and simply offering these ideas as opposed to kind of saying, yeah, man, you know, you should do this and this. And he would never be like that either. So yeah, man, he was remarkable like that. He really was.
I think
That was an amazing night.
I think there's actually a part there where he comes up and he says, "Oh, do you mind?" You know, he's asking you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other part here, sort of a little earlier here, where you know, he walks in and he sees us, and I think he, you know, when he's coming over, he's been messing around a bit. I had a thought, well, maybe he feels obliged to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe he felt funny. Oh my God, I came over here, Steve's working. You know, maybe Steve thinks it'd be funny if I'm just sitting there on the couch. You know, maybe I should, you know, go over there, you know, like he has to do that, you know. Yeah. And that's when I say, you know, hey man, you don't have to do this, you know. And that's what he says facetiously. And again, I describe it in the book, and I try to describe it, but you hear him say it, and he goes, "Yeah, man, because I hate music." like there's nothing more in this world than he would have rather been doing on a Wednesday night or whatever it was, than coming over to the pad and playing guitar in a song.
So I'll go to the
incredible.
One thing I like is that usually I just go by how feel, you know, and it's exactly how I would have done it where it came in, where the chorus came in. But just think of rhythmically an instrument doing this. Play it back. Something very, very straight. Play it back. Do you mind?
No. Yeah, no.
Ezra says, "Do you mind?" Asking your permission. So this is the next part coming out of it. I mean, you can hear it, because this tape, I think it actually goes for like an hour and a half, the whole thing. And you can see you've let it run. But that, you can hear that was actually the first time you heard it. Because you press play, he does that, and then comes out straight away with all these things. It's incredible getting into the mind of Eddie Van Halen. It's amazing.
Yeah. First time. I mean, you know, he didn't know the changes. But I mean, they were pretty simple changes, to be honest with you. But I mean, he knew them. I mean, you know, if he didn't know exactly what they were, or maybe, you know, I mean, he knew enough that he could play with them. And when he talks about not coming in, I wouldn't come in there. I think one of the things that people overlook a lot in Edward as an artist is his sense of orchestration. And the songwriting. I'm not talking about the riffs. We all know how amazing those riffs are, but how those riffs go together, and how he builds his riffs. You know, it could be something, you know, some little sus chord he'll put on the end of the second verse, or he'll, you know, some little note he'll add. I don't know if he ever consciously thought about verse, pre-chorus, chorus, you know, B section. I mean, he knew intuitively, but I don't think he ever really thought about that.
Yep.
But yeah, just the fact that he said, "Yeah, man, that's not where I come in." I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, what would have been extraordinary is, you know, giving Ed the tape, letting him go home, and coming back next day, and you know what he had done with that song.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is great hearing it firsthand of what he's actually goes through his mind while he's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next part here. Oh yeah, so I think this is the part where he's just trying to think of like a melody or something. Sorry, not melody, more of the chord rhythm, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. God, how fucking, I'm sorry, man. How fucking good is that?
I know.
I mean, that's all you have to hear. You go, "Oh my God, I mean, it would have made the entire song.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God.
Just that little riff. I mean, this one.
Right, not just but right. That's just so pure Van Halen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's him, Van Halen, as the sole guitar player in a trio, right? So if there's another guitar, you have maybe another guy chunking on those eighth notes, right? And he's going, yeah, you know what I mean. Guitar players will understand that, but him going, it just sets up the whole thing. And now, you know, it sets up what the bass part could be, right? And now it's look, we were using a drum machine. I mean, I give Ron, and I'll do credit, you know, he wasn't a drum programmer per se. So he just dialed in a simple little beat. But, you know, you can hear what a drummer would have played over that now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying?
There's those melodies he comes up with, you know.
Is it unbelievable? I mean, so you have to also understand, this is my Strat, right? This is the one I described. That's that 66 Brown Strat that anybody else playing it was amazing. Me, it was a piece of shit. So my bottom bar was, you could push and pull. So he's not used to that, right? As it's fixed, right? So that's a completely different thing for him. But yeah, I mean, you can hear how he heard those changes and what kind of a solo he would have done. It wasn't going to be a blazing tapping thing. It wasn't going to be, 30-second notes screaming. It was, more vibrato stuff. And really that solo is, I mean, you hear bits and pieces of that kind of vibrato stuff, the stuff with Van Halen, but that kind of a solo, you don't really hear that in a Van Halen song. I mean, that was a totally different approach because the music suggested something so different for him.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I just thought it was amazing. Yeah, and the fact that he does hit a couple wrong notes because he is searching, it tells you that, my God, the guy really is a human being. Once in a while, just because he's searching for it. And the fact that he does kind of hit some wrong notes makes it even more poignant and beautiful, right? That he's
exactly.
hanging out at a friend's house and, trying to come up with a solo over this song. Yeah. Oh man, I can remember him. I can just remember him so vividly playing this, Again, people say, well, what moments really stand out for you? And again, a lot of moments that stand out, but a lot of moments that are amazing moments that are a little hard to remember. We're talking 40 years ago, and some of those moments, a little hard to recall. They were brought back to me, of course, when I hear the tapes and I go, oh yeah, that's when we hung out earlier that day and, he got drunk or I got drunk, But this, I can remember the point when he opened the door and we're sitting on the floor, and Ron is there. And the fact that Ron was there, and let's even step back a step further. What if he'd come over that day and I hadn't been working on a song? It still would have been an amazing time because he was there and he would have messed around. But none of this would have happened, So you think, I'm not one to believe in destiny, or I think, you make your own way in the world, but, you think about synchronicity and if Ron had come over the next day and Edward was there the day before and, so he never plays part of 5150 and he never plays on the song and I never get to experience that and whatever it meant to Edward, he didn't experience it. You know what I mean? So yeah, this was, I mean, I remember so much about this night.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was just so amazing. I mean, it's like in one little capsule, one little evening, it tells you everything you wanted to know about this guy, Edward Van Halen, right?
Yep.
The humility, the musicality, the amazing musician, the honesty, you know,
Yeah.
it was just all there, you know, for me. So
Yeah, that's right.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, I know we've only got a little bit here, but and the audiobook has the more of the explanation of what's going on as well. But yeah, if we had had all this in the audiobook, it would have went for 60 hours. So it's good we get the chance to do this now as well.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody has to understand, again, this is stuff that you would never have heard anywhere. And I thought, well, you know, stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, as it were, some of this stuff was really remarkable. And as Adam said, yes, I mean, there would have been no way to put in entire interviews. Yeah, it would have been 50 hours long.
Yep.
You know. So, but it was Adam's idea to sort of, you know, present these, you know, unheard portions to you. And now that we're doing this sort of this, you know, kickoff segment, I agree, because some of these moments that aren't in the book, or they only touch on them, where I have, you know, described them in the hardback, and now you can actually hear that little bit that I've described in the hardback. I think brings, you know, the hardback more to life for you, and hopefully it'll make you again want to go and check out the audiobook, because really, I mean, all that being said, I mean, just about all the good stuff is in there, you know.
Yeah.
So there's some pieces here that we did keep out, but that audiobook really is, you know, kind of the life and times, at least the life and times he spent with me, with Edward Van Halen. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I think the next one he goes into. I'll have a quick listen here. Oh yeah, I think is this the next song? Is that the same song?
I think that's the fade
Okay.
of Believe.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's only been, you know, 48 years since I've ever heard the song or whatever it is. But yeah, I think it's the, I think it's the fade of Believe, that first song we were hearing.
Okay. Again, just that little part there.
I know.
Yeah, it's it's amazing.
Yeah, again, yeah, that feel, and he kind of turns that, yeah, you know, and he kind of, I don't know if he drops a beat or he turns that thing around, which is what he did all the time, right? The Van Halen stuff. And you could hear how he would have just developed that little bit as sort of a fade piece, you know, for the song that you wouldn't have heard anywhere else. I liken that part, and not that it sounds like it, but on Jump, the very fade, and I think it only goes through one time. It's at dun, 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 it's that little eighth note thing on the fade of Jump, right? And that was actually, and then there's like a couple chord accents. That was actually, and I think I write about it in the book. That was actually another song, and he just took that piece and put it on the end of Jump. But it was just amazing how he would do that stuff. You know, this is perfectly orchestrated part. And as soon as you hear that, you know that the song is coming to an end.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? That is, I mean, that is orchestration at a really high level. He did the same thing. Actually, one of my favorite Van Halen songs, Jamie's Crying. The end, when he kind of does that that counterpoint to the fade, to what the vocal is doing, and as soon as you hear that, and again, I think it only does it like one time, but and I asked him about that. He goes, "Oh yeah, man, it was just a counterpoint thing that I came up with." because that song was written in the studio. I mean, that they didn't have that song. I think it's one of the best songs on that record. But he just heard that stuff so perfectly, as it just screamed, this song is fading, you know. The same way like you recognized, Adam, the song is fading. It wouldn't have worked anywhere else in the song as perfectly as it works there. So you know, and that may have been the end of Mortal Man, which is the other song. It's honestly, it's hard for me to remember. It doesn't really matter for these purposes. It's in the book. I think if you read the book, it'll delineate which song is which. Yeah, God, you know, I haven't heard this in a long time. I've heard a lot of the audiobook. Well, I wouldn't have heard it because it's not in the audiobook. So yes, so I haven't heard these bits. Well, arguably since they were recorded, because even when I was sending them to you, you know, it's not like I wasn't listening to them. I was just, you know, sending you files. So, yeah, wow.
Well, I guess that's what took me so long. So I had to sit through all these and get the parts.
Exactly, and we touched on that before, and you know, telling people. So we're talking about many hours of audio. And I had found all of those interviews because I used them to write the book. But what I should have done is I write about the book, because a lot of those tapes were not labeled. Why did I not label them when I knew that they were part? Oh, this is chapter 14. You know, pages, you know, 318 to 340. I would have been perfect. I would have known exactly what to send you.
Exactly.
Did I do that? No.
That's okay.
So, you know, I would send you stuff, and we did okay. You know, I think we got through the first few chapters, and then you wrote me back, said, oh, yeah, man, the last 4 pages of chapter 12 are missing. I'm going, what are you talking about, man? You're making a mistake. They're on the tape before. They're on the tape after. Go find them, you know. So, you know, let's just blame the sound man, right? I thought, oh my God, how am I going to find these? You know, so I would send you more stuff, and then I actively look for it where I thought it would be, and once in a while it would be there.
Yep.
But I know that there were a couple pieces. It was literally, I remember, like one paragraph in a section, and I thought, well, how can that even be possible that the audio would be missing one paragraph within? I mean, it's like impossible. But somehow I had switched tapes, and the tape had shut off. I don't know what happened, but at the end of the day, we were able to find every single part. Because had we not, it would have been the terrible option of me having to read those parts.
Yep.
And oh my God, what a travesty and a tragedy that would have been. All this beautiful archival audio, and then me, you know, having to read my voice. Oh, so man, somehow you got through it, man, and you cleaned it, mixed it, and compressed it, and did everything you possibly could with your, you know, excellent array of gear. And, you know, I had a couple of people say to me, yeah, man, a couple of the parts are a little rough, but it really lends to the originality and the archival nature of it and the authenticity of it. That these were recorded on cheap tapes on a cheap cassette player dating back to 1978. The fact that these tapes existed at all, that didn't get tangled when I played them for the first time, because they haven't been played since the day they were recorded. They sat there, you know, they hadn't oxidized, they hadn't, a tape hadn't broken. Not one tape broke, not one tape got, you know, unraveled. And, you know, so, I mean, there it is, you know.
That's
yeah.
Good. Glad we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I only got a couple more sections here. So the next one. Again, another nice melody.
Oh my God, how amazing is that? I forgot about this is immortal, man.
Okay.
And funny, and the songs that Ron and I wrote, this was written after Believe. And when I say after, it could have been, I don't know, a couple of months after, but somehow we were still working on it in this period. Probably wasn't written that long after, but in my mind, it was a better, had I become a better songwriter in 2 weeks since I wrote Believe, well, I'd like to think so. It was just a better song, it was darker to begin with. I called Mortal Man. I thought that was a cool title. And the guy who sang this, and I don't think the vocals were on yet, was a guy named Ralph Mormon. I may have mentioned his name in the book. I can't remember. But a guy named Ralph Mormon, Mormon, sang this. And he sang with, some pretty cool band. I mean, he was a really great singer. He did an amazing job on the vocal. So, yeah. And again, I forgot that Edward. Yeah, so that's kind of a verse, I think, there. And Edward. And again, now, so that's the other thing. There are no vocals on these songs, right? So Edward is sort of hearing what he thinks a vocal could be. His melody is so perfect. Those melodies, aren't they unbelievable?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're amazing. And not in a million years could I ever have conceived of it. I mean, they're so perfect. They could have been background harmonies, vocal harmonies, right? Could have been this great keyboard part.
Yep.
God.
Yeah, let's just.
What a great composer he was.
Yeah, just got to hear that one again. That's just catchy already. Da, 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 da.
Exactly. Incredible.
Now, I think the next part I've got here is actually in the book. I just want to double check here.
That's neat shit, man.
That's really so. That's neat shit, man.
Seriously.
Yeah, so all this next section here, you'll find on pages 379 to 380. So people who've got the book or the audio book, make sure you check out. This is amazing stuff here that Ed talks about actually recording songs and his idea about doing different parts, the B sections, what you were talking about before. It's incredible. So it's definitely check this part out.
That's so cool. Adam, we were talking before we started recording here, and you had pointed that part out to me. And I had people would ask me along the way, oh, did you ever talk to Edward about his songwriting? And I would answer in generalities, yeah, we talked about that a little bit. I mean, a fair amount, but I never realized how deep it really got in this chapter, where and the whole thing is spurred because he's over at my place that night working on my songs. So it's in the context of him being there and in his mindset, he's thinking about, or I'm guessing he's thinking about, well, I've just put these parts on, and I'm hearing the songs, and this is my approach, and this is how I do things. So really, that is a pretty illuminating part.
Yeah.
And again, I write about it in the hardback, and it's cool to read that, and you're hearing the process. But to hear him talk about it it's just amazing. I have interviewed a lot of guitar players. I mean, in my life, a lot. And whenever you ask them that question, man, it always sort of comes out the same way. I say, well, man, how do you write, or what do you think about when you write? I never ask, where did you get the idea for a song? Because that's a question that they're always asked. But, what is your songwriting process like? And most guys will say, well, man, I don't really know. It's just like it was always there, and I just kind of pulled it out of the air, which is, I mean, I get it. It's kind of a half-assed way of saying, I don't have a clue of what I do, and I get it because it's not really a cerebral process. I mean, Edward was a piano player. He understands harmony. He He understands chord changes. He understands perfect cadences and, you know, minor keys and going in and out of keys. He understands all that, you know, intellectually, but that has nothing to do with how he writes songs. So to hear him describe it a little bit about that process and being able to verbalize it, that's really pretty rare.
Yeah.
You know, of how aware he was, sort of on an intellectual level,
Yeah.
of what it was he was doing. Now, again, I think he tossed all that aside when he was sitting there, and you know, he comes up the riff for, you know, bottoms up or you know, whatever. I think all that went out the window. Although I think later on, and I think maybe, you know, the 1984 record may have been the beginning of it. I mean, you hear a song like Jump, and I mean, you hear a little bit of that classical composure coming out of him, right? You hear all of those, you know, chords based off, I don't know what key the song is in, you know, but you know, dun, 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 you know, all those running chords based on the one A or a D, whatever that is, you know.
There you go.
Exactly. So, you know, I think maybe his songwriting got a little more intellectualized, his songwriting, maybe, you know, and certainly the songs on 5150, I mean, those songs change. And again, that's the introduction of Sammy. Sammy's a different kind of singer than Dave. The range is bigger. Edward is, you know, could maybe be a little more experimental. You know, maybe he's thinking, you know, I can, you know, reach outside of keys. I can try these stranger chords. You know, Sammy will be able to come up with a melody. I mean, those are my thoughts.
Yep.
But
100%.
Yeah.
No, like you said, you know, this chapter, it really emphasizes the songwriting and the mindset of Edward Van Halen, the way he writes, and get to jam with you. Yeah, again, amazing experience. So pretty much from here, it goes into another section, like this, about another 30, 40 minutes of this chapter, where he actually writes one of the songs for 5150, which we'll do on the next.
We're not going to.
No,
right?
They'll be on the next.
We're not gonna,
and it's amazing. I must just say, it's incredible. I've got all the wave files here, just the different things he does to write this song and to get you guys involved as well. Like he's got Ron doing some parts, and it's incredible. So coming up real soon.
It's amazing. So stay tuned for that one. You'll be blown away. I mean, it is amazing. And again, same thing. I'm hearing him sort of direct Ron into playing these parts of the keyboard, and I'm hearing him play. I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing song that is. And, you know, and he's told us this is something he'd been working on. I think he said, or he might have just said to Ron, you know, play this, and showed Ron the parts.
Yep.
And I just thought, yeah, it was something he was working on. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
It's pretty magical.
Yeah.
Pretty magical.
Yeah, so I never really touched on, you know, what happened in this chapter, but this chapter in the audiobook's got a lot of different you know, things where Ed talks about, again, the songwriting and lots of other things. So yeah, definitely check out the audiobook to experience the whole thing, what's going on here. So it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think if you like the hardback, I think you will love the audio.
For sure.
It's just, it's just pretty amazing. It's a really unique audiobook. You know, the fact that it is embedded with all that original audio from the artist. I mean, you know, I've never heard of another audiobook doing that. You know, whether it's about a musician or an actor, you know, you don't read a book about you don't hear an audiobook on John Wayne and you hear John Wayne's voice. It's just not done, you know,
yeah, that's right.
for some reason. But I thought, wow, this is going to be unique and new, and Van Halen fans are going to love it. So,
yeah. So thank you once again, Steve, for this. It's really been amazing getting into the insight of the book and the audio book, and just incredible hearing all these things from way back in 1985, and even way back before 1978. So thank you once again.
well, you're welcome, and welcome to everybody watching. It was hard putting the audiobook together. It was hard for everybody. Everybody hung in there. Adam Roach, my engineer out here, Tanner. It was hard. I mean, it was challenging. But at the end of the day, I think it's really remarkable. I think it's a unique piece of Van Halen history, and I'm so happy that you know we started it and completed it, and I hope you know, I hope you guys will dig this first segment we put up. There will be more, and we're just gonna, you know, hop, skip, and jump around the book and pull out different parts that you haven't heard. And yeah, man.
And there's a lot of that.
It's gonna absolutely. So it's gonna be cool. So hang on and be on the lookout for all this cool stuff coming your way.
That's it. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Adam. We'll see you soon, buddy.
See you later. Bye.
Maybe by the B section or whatever, people go, okay, and all of a sudden, hey, you know, I'm serious, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, just anything to fucking keep it exciting. You know, what I was doing, if you do it all the way through, then that's
Right.
too, you know? So maybe you could start out, you know, maybe doing a, can you turn it back on real quick?
Yeah. Put the power on the,
I don't exactly remember how it goes, but if you do like a... You know, something that's along the lines of what he's doing. For first time around, and then next time, you know... You know, and then at the end you go... You know what I mean?
idea of the big build, yeah.
You know, you could
Yeah.
just to every time a little bit different, but same theme.
Right.
You know, and obviously you want to build it so then you end up, you know, kind of where double bass drum come, you know, you start off going to.